Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. And today I want to have a conversation with you about the vocabulary and tool set that we give ourselves and our team members to be able to move forward. So every couple of years, there become like really, really trendy vernacular that everyone is using. And in the spaces that I operate in, I get a lot of hearing about work-life balance and burnout. So I hear a lot about those two subjects. They mean the same thing, but a lot of employees give that type of feedback. And this isn't just rank and file employees. These can be executives, these can be doctors, these can be financial advisors, just saying, I really feel burnt out. I really feel I don't have a good work-life balance. Now, these might be trendier terms in the last 5 years, but they're not new terms. If you think back a couple decades ago, didn't you all often hear about the word sabbatical all of the time? I wish I could take a sabbatical. So much so that you had bigger institutions, universities, hospitals, etc., start offering their employees, their tenured professionals, sabbaticals. And the sabbatical was to say, hey, listen, it costs us more to replace you as a professional than it would to necessarily just give you 3 months, 6 months, or even a year off. And so instead of losing you forever as an employee, what we're going to do is we're going to give you this sabbatical. Now, sabbaticals still happen in universities today. They also happen in some larger hospitals, and I've heard of them operating in some sort of small to medium-sized practices too, but not terribly often. And here's why. Because when I hear the word sabbatical, I hear this person is about to leave or go into retirement and they're a year or 2 years away. And the universities, once you hit your 10-year professorship, they'll offer you, not all universities, but a couple that I've been familiar with, they'll offer you 12 months of sabbatical time. And so you can take an entire year off. You're still getting your regular paycheck. You have no course load and you have no requirement to come to the university and do anything. It's your sabbatical year. So I recently had a client do this. She just really wanted to travel with her partner who was doing a whole bunch of incredible scuba diving across the world. And she needed more time off than what she had allotted. And so she said, you know what, I'm going to take a sabbatical and I'm going to go, traverse everywhere around the world with her. And I knew as soon as we said the word sabbatical, I immediately adjourned from that meeting and we went back and we revised her retirement dates. Why? Because retirement was 5 years down the road, but now she wants to take 1 year off. And so when she comes back, what's going to happen to her retirement timeline? Yeah, she's going to want to retire sooner. Why? Because sabbatical is just practicing for retirement. This is not like we're in our 20s and taking a gap year before college in the real world. Why? Because in those gap years, you knew you had to come back to some type of reality. You would have to earn some type of income. You had student loans that had to be paid for. You had the rest of your life in which you were going to be buying goods and services and exchanging money. So you knew you had to return to that. But by the time that you've hit tenure and you've earned some type of sabbatical, retirement could kind of be an option, could kind of be something that you're realistically thinking about taking or doing or upping the timeline on. So I don't use this word often, sabbatical. I've heard a lot of conversation with different wealth planning firms about allowing their financial advisors to take a sabbatical. Sabbatical is just early retirement to me. That's all you're saying is you're going to go practice being retirement. I get to pay for it. And then when you come back, you're going to be gone in the next 2 to 3 years. So when I have clients ask me for their hospital and say, hey, listen, is this something that we should run out? And I said, listen, here's my experience. And at the particular board meeting, I pivoted over to our chief operations officer and I said, hey, you've got 30 years running in the medical field. Can you tell me when people came back from a sabbatical, how much longer? Oh, she goes, oh no, they were retired within a year and a half. She's like 1.5 years, 2 years max. They were done wrapping up their practices, transferring their patients. And I said, okay, great. So this isn't just a financial advisor space. This isn't just university professors. This isn't just medical. These are people that are practicing that, gosh, I really like not not having to go to work. Now, recently, the terms have kind of changed to work-life balance and to burnout. And so we hear a lot about the words, I'm burnt out. And I think that really more so has to speak to the monotony of what you're doing as a profession and how you're not balancing all other aspects of your life. And the problem is that we're asking a job to do that for us. Is we get up, we give our time, we give our energy, we give our mental stamina. And oftentimes, most professionals I know, when we come home from the day of work, we don't just stop. It's just not clock off, right? We're not punching in, punching out. And all of a sudden, we're present with our family and we're no longer thinking about our clients. We're no longer thinking about all the things we didn't get done today. And in that lack of presence, we want to blame the job. But is it the job or is it the way that we are using time management? And is it the way that we've given ourselves a vocabulary instead of a tool set to allow for us to take these necessary breaks or to excuse our behavior for not living up to something? I'm not saying people don't get burnout, and I'm not saying that you don't need a break. You know, at Shalansky & Associates up in Anchorage, Alaska, we have an enterprise office. We have several financial advisors that are absolutely crushing it. But one of the things that we do within our entire team is that we want to thwart off any type of burnout, any type of work-life balance questions. So at the end of the year, what we'll do is we'll roll out a calendar with all of our team members, and I will have this wrapped up with our team by the time that we go into our spring retreat before our spring surge. And I will roll it out with my team members, everyone. And our time off is based on seniority, and it's also based on first come, first served. And so if you put in your time off, but your senior person, and it gets approved, and your senior person to you also puts in time off for that same time, you're not getting, just because you're a lower rank, your plans completely change because they're pulling rank on you. This is the importance of being able to roll out that calendar. Now, in our RIA up in Anchorage, Alaska, we have 3 what we refer to as pods. We have financial advisors. We have our operations team. They're responsible for the movement of money. So these are the people that do paperwork. They're really, really good with paperwork. And then we have our relationship managers. Our relationship managers do not give financial advice. I know some other practices use that term as the person that is speaking more frequently to the client, kind of like a junior advisor. We do not use it in that capacity. Our relationship managers are responsible for the relationship of the client, but they cannot provide financial advice. So they help with appointments. They help facilitating getting online documents. They coordinate third-party meetings. They follow up with operations teams. They get the clients copies of documents. That happens a lot. Particularly, in fact, I just recently had this happen. Client's husband was going through dementia. She had to sell off several of their Alaska properties. They moved to Oregon. And in those process of shuffling everything around, they had several moves because they sold those properties, consolidated everything in one house in Alaska, then moved to Oregon. Then he had to go and live with a full-time caregiver. So, I mean, there's just several different moving pieces. Well, if you've ever moved, you know you lose you lose the stuff that you don't expect to lose. Even the really important stuff that you have in a box called important stuff. Sometimes things just get lost and you have no idea where you place them. And so in her case, she had completely found all of the amendments. She found her last will and testament. She found her durable power of attorney. She found the advanced health care directive. And she found the amendments for the trust, but she couldn't find a copy of the full family trust. And so she had shuffled everywhere. She's trying to get a hold of her attorneys. She had been spending 6 months trying to get those records. The attorney had moved law firms 3 or 4 different times because now the trust is a decade old, right? And so she contacts us and says, you know what, I'm probably just at the point I'm going to have to get a brand new trust because nobody can find this original one. And I said, hold on a second, tasked it over to our relationship managers. Our relationship managers dug through our files, found it in the archive section, and sent her a digital copy. And her response to us in writing was, Shalansky's to the rescue again. I don't know how I'd keep my life so organized and know I had everything taken care of and if it wasn't for your team. For your team. Even though I heard the information, even though I got it, I sent it over to our relationship managers. They found it. They sent it to the client, and the team took the win. And this is what's really important to me about making sure that our clients feel like they're working with their financial advisor on an individual level, but a holistic approach. Because if everything has to come down to me as a financial advisor, as an individual, there's no reprieve from that. Nobody else can help anyone. And my team can't be empowered to meet these client needs. That wasn't financial advice. Looking for an archived document was not financial advice. Finding it, encrypting it, and sending it to the client, not financial advice, but a huge win for our team because it helped the client. It helped the client. And this is one of the reasons I really, really drive home with professionals in the financial advisory space that if you want to go it alone, if you want your clients only coming to you and ask you questions, guess what? You've set up the life where they're only going to come to you for every single question. So don't tell me later that you're burnt out or exhausted when you are now eating what you have been cooking. And worse than just cooking, you hunted and killed and put it on your plate. You're responsible for the whole freaking supply chain of this scenario. So what are the ways that you can take control and your team members can take control so as not to fall on these trendy terms like burnout, work-life balance, sabbaticals, etc.? So instead of that, and this, what a luxury. What a luxury that we can say we're burnt out or that we have no work-life balance or that we need a break. Because if you look at just civilization throughout time, we didn't have space for all of these issues. You had to seek shelter and find food and, set up irrigation systems, and you had to constantly be physically moving. But today, a lot of our work is online, and it's while it's mentally taxing, it's physically easy. It's physically easy because if you have ever gone like rustic camping, and I mean rustic, not glamping, not a motorhome, not some bougie camp spot that has a waiting list of 3 years that you finally got on. But if you go off into the wilderness and you've got a backpack and you're gone for 7 days and you know that the best way to resource your food is to trap, to hunt, to fish, to pick berries, to do whatever it needs to do, and use your food that you have brought with you last, because that's your last resource. It has the bigger preservatives. And so if you've done that, your whole day is occupied. You need to go from one destination to the other. You need to seek shelter. You need to get warm. So you got to set up fire. You got to come up with a watering system because you've only brought a limited supply of water with you as well. So are you boiling water? Are you distilling it? You have time, but your time is constantly plagued by the idea of surviving. But today, we have such a luxury in this country and in most first world countries that we are not face to face with our need to survive every second out of the day. Instead, we get the luxury of thinking and wondering and pondering if we're tired or if we're burnt out or if we have to do these certain things. And so what I love to do with my team is I love to give them a vocabulary to change that perspective. And instead of saying work-life balance, we're rolling out that calendar. And I tell my team, listen, I'm expecting you to show up. I'm expecting you to give me your A game. There are no B players on my freaking team. You can't win the Olympics with a bunch of B players. Could you imagine showing up any Olympic game ever and being like, we've got some BC squad over here. Why don't you guys give it a go? Let's see if we can bring home the gold. No, you're not going to bring home. That's what you're going to bring home. So instead, we bring A game level people. This is people that really care about the work that they are doing. That does not mean they always get it right. That does not mean they're perfect. That doesn't mean that they don't need guidance or somebody driving it or somebody holding them accountable. They still need all of those things. The biggest mistake, the biggest joke that you will ever make is hiring somebody and thinking your life is just going to get so much easier. It's not. The worst part, and I'm sorry, my team members that are out there listening to this, I mean it in my heart and soul, but the worst part of owning a business are employees. Why are they the worst? Because everyone interviews normally really well, and you don't know how well somebody's actually going to work until their butt is in the seat and they're responsible and accountable for doing things. So as you're expanding as a business owner, it's really hard because you get a bad employee in there and it could turn you off from wanting to hire someone for months, if not years. I meet financial advisors that don't want to hire anyone because they hired the person, normally their niece, and the niece didn't do anything and they had to subsidize and create all of this family drama for them, and now they don't want to hire anyone ever again. That's not the answer either. So employees can be the best and worst part of running a business. But if you aren't giving them the vocabulary, if you're not giving them the tool, if you're not helping them through being their better selves, you're not going to get the result that you want. So when we roll out this calendar, I go to every single team member and I say, listen, you don't have to use all your time off. So we have a tiered system. You start with like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it goes all the way way up to 30 days plus government holidays. We really try to be generous. This is not written in stone because it can't always be, but we really try to be generous during the week of Christmas because it's the week of Christmas. No real business is happening anyway, unless you have a crisis. And so we try to be really generous with that time off. But it has to happen in a certain fashion. It cannot happen during surge. So one of our hard rules is that when I surge, you surge, we surge. There's no time off. You can ask me any question as an employee. I am not offended. I am not blindsided. I am not taken aback. You can ask me anything as long as you do not insult me by asking for time off during surge. Do not do it. That is in the equivalent of somebody being in the battlefield. Could you imagine somebody be a blaster, take a blaster on a SEAL team, and then being like, hey, I'd really like to take some time off right now before we go, as we're on this mission, as we're in the thralls of it. He's looking back, green dots everywhere. He just peeled off the sticky tape on the device. And he says, actually, guys, I'm feeling kind of burnt out. I'd like to take a little bit of time off. No, because when we go into surge, I treat it with the same gravitas I would going into war. I'm not saying it's a battle. I'm saying that I'm going to show up for my clients. I'm going to show up for my team members, and we're all going to be loyal. We're all going to support each other, and people aren't going to be so gosh darn rude that they're asking for time off during that period. It is critical. And if your role in our organization is not that important, it's so important that I can tell you you cannot take time off during surge, but you think that you can, you are no longer vital to the organization. I don't need you because you just told me that on game day, you cannot be there. You will not be there. You will not prioritize being there. But outside of that surge schedule, I do want you to take time off. And I'm so adamant about this that if you don't tell me in advance, I'm going to roll out the calendar and say, listen, you can choose some dates or I can choose them, but whatever's going to happen. I did have one. So there's always two sides of this. You always have the team members that use every hour and maybe even more of their time off as possible. And then you have the ones that you have to sit down and say, listen, I've seen you every day for the last 6 months. I need you to take a couple of days off. Oh, well, I don't want to go anywhere. Well, don't go anywhere. Just don't come here. I need you to refill your cup. I need you to rejuvenate. I need you to be able to show up on those game days because I'm not taking advantage when we're not on the floor, when we're not in battle. And I need you to do that for me. And so we're really generous. We're really sticklers about this. And a lot of financial advisors take abundance of time off. And they often, and this is the part that kills me. They have so much head trash about doing that. They're like, if I leave the office, then everyone in my office is going to want to leave when I'm gone. Not necessarily. Like people really like working and people really like what they have to contribute and they know they're of value. And there are people, if you haven't read 6 Working Geniuses, it's a great book. The podcast is mediocre in my perspective, mostly because they constantly use their 12 different acronyms. Well, I know there's 6, but different acronyms. And unless you're really, really fluent in the Working Geniuses, you get lost in the conversations, like being part of this little niche networking group that you don't know the language about. But anyhow, the book is fantastic and the test is even better. It costs you $25. You can jump online. If you have not done this for your team, I do this in addition. It's a compilation to the DISC, DISC. That's a behavioral heuristic test. I think it's based on Myers-Briggs. So there's like 4 levels of psychology. There's about 4 main dominant groups out there that tell you what people's different communication style preferences are. They're all great. They're not all equal. They give you different information, but they draw the same conclusions most of the time, I think. But the Working Geniuses tell people when they're feeling most fulfilled. So for myself, I'm a galvanizer. I take 2 groups of people and I can galvanize it together and man, I can get shit done. I can move mountains and I can make people think that they are capable of achieving so much more than what they started the day thinking that they were. Because guess what? I'm not selling them anything. They are that freaking capable. They are that worthy. They are in the pursuit of perfection. They are a person that is capable of living up to the glory in which God has bestowed upon each and every one of us. But sometimes we turn up all of the head trash and we drown out all of the voices that say we can be better, we can achieve greatness, we are worthy of perfection, we are worthy of happiness. And they hear this other voice telling them they're not smart enough, they're not good enough, and it doesn't matter. Rich, poor, black, white, Asian, I don't care where you came from or what your background was. At some point in your life, you made a deliberate decision to listen to all of the naysayers and all of the people saying negative things to you instead of all of the other people who care about you and tell you positive things about you. And shame on you for doing that. And so in those working geniuses, I found out that I'm a galvanizer. I can take groups of people and say, great, how do we come together and get this done? That is what I love to do. I love to get done. And so it tells me where I'm at my highest and best use. And it also tells me what my secondary factor is. So if I am a galvanizer, I need somebody that's discerning, because I'm going to see the unlimited possibilities. I live in a world of absolute abundance, and I'm going to see all of the opportunity, and I'm going to see some of the obstacles as a challenge for me to have to overcome. I'm not going to be super discerning about, is the risk versus the reward? What are all of the other logistics that have to go in place in order to get X, Y, and Z done? That's where I'm going to get bogged down. I'll tell you what, a fun exercise, do this with your spouse. This is one of the few things I'll tell you to do with your spouse when it comes to work. But if you both take this test, you'll learn and sometimes communicate a little bit better, because I'm a galvanizer, so I like to see unlimited potential. My spouse is more of a discerner. They see all of the reasons why you shouldn't. Now, when I'm sharing an idea, guess how I hear feedback from them? I hear feedback as negative. I hear feedback as limited potential. I hear feedback as they don't think I can get this done. And so that is 0% what they are saying, 0%. But that's what I'm hearing because I'm a galvanizer and they're a discerner. And so being able to have your team members go through this and really getting their feedback about where do they fit in this spectrum, now you can look at your organization, your FAs, your operations, your relationship managers, and say, if I'm this, I need that. So I know that for my operations team, I need somebody discerning. I know for my relationship team, I do need somebody that's an enabler. An enabler is somebody that helps other people get their stuff done. And they want to see things through. They want to enable you towards your success, not enable in a negative way, enable you towards success. So it's $25 for the test. I think it's completely worth taking this test and to figure out your working geniuses, and then also figure out how the people around you work. Now, the other side of this is making sure, so once I've made sure my team member has all their time off sanctioned and done on the calendar, and it works where they're not always coming to me, they go to their lead. As a good rule, if you're running an enterprise practice or if you've got more than 2 people in your office, our rule is 2 people in the same pod cannot be out at the same time. And it is first come, first serve. So if we have 2 people in one pod ask me for the same time off, whoever asked for it first and got it approved first is the person that's getting it off. You'll need to shift your dates. Now, there are some circumstances which allow us to alter that a little bit, and that is death, because that is never predictable. In that case, we can. Now, weddings are a little bit more predictable most of the time, and so we can shift those accordingly too. The second element of this is making sure that they have the vocabulary for personal development. Sometimes we get so lost and blindsided by all of the things telling us how tired, how exhausted, how burnt out, how, draining everything is, that we're not refilling our cup with the right kind of information. And that's where I really dive into the individualized lesson plans with my team. What is your professional development? What are you going to read? What are you going to listen to? What conferences are you going to go to? What are you ingesting? We are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most amount of time with. So are you around like-minded people who are looking to grow and develop in the same ways that you are? Now, not once in my life have I ever met an individual, except for integrators. Now, if you're an integrator out there, no, that's not even true, because I do get asked for help on integrators. But most integrators know what they want to go learn next year. Not all of them do, but most of them do. But most team members and financial advisors, they don't know what they should be focused and learning on. They need some help, some guidance, some ideas. And so I like to take things either by a quarter or a year. And I say, hey, for the next 90 days, can I become an expert on X, Y, and Z? And so maybe I'm taking just that little bit of time and deep dive, where I'm reading case studies and learning and talking and visiting with people in all of this different space. And if I've learned enough, great. And if not, I continue that chapter for the next 90 days. Maybe that's something you're interested in. But when I give my team a vocabulary of what they're able to achieve, it's amazing how all of the things about how they can't achieve other things begin to fall away by the wayside. Because we weren't made for limitations. We weren't made to get bogged down by obstacles. skills. We were made by a creator for greatness, but sometimes we got to listen to that message. We've got to figure out what that greatness is. We've got to say, hey, listen, I'm not hanging around people that are bringing me up to that next level. So I got to go listen to somebody else. I got to find a different network. And I love looking outside of finance for this. There are tons of great organizations and people in different spaces that if you just spend a year getting to, bounce around. And I also just shared this with a client who was really trying to find a mentor coach and had a mentor coach for 20 years and really helped him as he went through the military. But the problem is, I said, you're treating your next evolution of finding a coach like you are a therapist. You're trying to find one person that you can share your entire life story with, and they're going to help you for the rest of your life. You got to think of coaches as more like a 6 to 12 month hire. They're going to take you to some level, and then you need to go probably find somebody else. Unless your coach is sitting down and giving you a 3 to 5 year strategy and is moving up at the same pace you are, if your coach has inundated and saturated a market and that is the only space that they operate in, then they're probably going to get washed out. They're done leveling up. But if your coach is a person that is constantly learning, constantly developing, constantly leveling up, then as you grow, they're growing and they're going to take you on the way up with them. So that is one of the criteria that we look for in coaches, and being able to terminate a relationship when it no longer suits you. And then you also need to look at your team. What kind of coaching do they have? Now, you might be a really inspirational leader, but guess what? The more time that they get to spend with you, the less they will hear you. If you do not believe me, look at your relationship. Because 6 months after you started dating the person that you love the most, that thought you hung the sun and moon, they probably started thinking you were a little less capable of getting things done. And our family goes across the board. We call this stranger in uniform. If I tell my spouse something, what do I know? But if a stranger in a uniform tells them it, oh Lord, is it gospel? Do they have a stranger in uniform? Are you bringing in somebody 1 to 2 times a year to help them level up? Now, here's the tricky part. If you bring in a person that's going to talk about work-life balance, about burnout, about struggle, about mental fatigue, guess where their mind is going to go? That is what they're going to focus on. They're going to focus on that. We're going to have self-fulfilling prophecies. And instead, I want to bring people in that says, hey, how are you doing with time management? When are you refilling your cup? What are the things that you next want to go achieve? What does your personal development look like? How are you establishing boundaries so you can stay focused in your glory and greatness? Where are you at your highest and best use? And so it's the same damn subject, right? But it's a different type of vocabulary. And so think about it with your kid. And this is a rule right out of the Brian Tracy playbook. Tell your kid it's stupid every day, and guess what it's going to grow up to believe? It's stupid. Tell your kid that, you know what, you're brilliant, you're great, you're fantastic. Deepak Chopra, I think, talked about this. Now, Deepak took this to a little bit of extremes, and I don't know where I kind of sit on this. I kind of go back and forth. He would tell his children, do not worry about making a career, making a life for yourself, because if you cannot provide for yourself, I will provide for you. Now, Deepak was trying to reinforce abundance, because if you took that pressure off, he would go and the kids would do glorious things, to which I believe that they have. I don't know. I haven't been to a barbecue with them recently, but this is that type of mentality. And I think about this because my parents were great parents, but they were traditional parents in the sense that if I brought home all A's and a C, they were like, why did you get a C? Never mind all the A's that I just smashed out of the park. And now, if we can take that, instead focus on where you're great at, where are your strengths, let's cultivate those instead of learning over a lifetime to be mediocre at whatever you got a C in. Think about the incredible potential that we would have. So just like that with my team, I want to give them the right kind of vocabulary. We're still talking about work-life balance, aren't we? I mean, you could dress it up, semantics, call it whatever you want, but I'm giving them a different tool set. I'm not telling them how limited they are. I'm reminding them of how unlimited they are, about how much potential exists inside of them if they believe an ounce as much as I believe in them. And we need that reinforced a couple of times a year. I really need this, and we got to figure out how to carve out time for it. I need it probably 3 weeks into a 5-week surge, because that is when you start slipping sideways and you start seeing all the mistakes. Because now you're meeting with all your clients, you're delivering all your value adds, you're seeing what's broken, you're seeing who's getting behind, you're seeing what's on course, what's not on course. And then you need, I was telling Mike and my baby brother, we need like a battle cry, 2/3 through surge, like, hey guys, we are start out super, super strong. We're all high energy. But then at some point, if you run a marathon, you're going to hit mile 18. And at mile 18 is a wall. That's where most people quit. And you have to push beyond that in order to get to the finish line. And that's where we need that battle cry to remind us that, like, hey, on the weekends, if you're out partying all weekend, if you're throwing client events or prospecting events during surge and you're exhausted on Monday, guess what? It's Thursday before you recover. Because if you are anything like me, once you hit 40, you recover from surgery faster than you do a night out partying with your girlfriends. So if you are not refilling your cup on the weekend, if you're not getting that downtime, if you're not getting those nutrients and you're not getting outside, especially because a lot of what we do is inside, if you're not getting outside, then shame on you. Then you're going to be dragging the rest of that week instead of coming back as an Olympian, as an athlete. I love this because it was Emmitt Smith, right? Right after he ran the NFL, he ran a Super Bowl and he came back. I'm not great on sport analogies, so if I'm getting any of this wrong, do not send me hate mail. I am great on listening to someone's message. And the day after he won the Super Bowl, he got back in the gym and they said, "What are you doing? Aren't you going to take any time off?" And he said, "Nope, because the person I'm going to beat next year didn't take today off." And so he was already like celebrated his victory, but right back in there getting ready for that next one. And that's the same thing we have to do during surge. We got to plow hard, right? We got to do everything that we need to do. And this one thing I was trying to beat home to a protege, because Friday they were tapped out. They're mentally drained. They were super fatigued. They were tired. They want to go home and get on the couch, binge, watch some Netflix, chill out for the rest of the weekend. And I said, "Hey, Saturday morning, I'm 100% ready for next week. Are you?" Because I've double checked everything. Did a client upload something at the last minute? Is there a question I haven't addressed? Do I need to talk about something? I've read last time's memo. I've read the last homework sheet that we had. Am I 100% ready for the next week coming? And if you're waiting till Monday morning to get ready, oh my gosh. Financial advisors like me and my team are going to eat you alive because you are not treating this with the severity and the diligence and the professionalism that your clients should expect from you. You talk a lot in the financial advisory space about fee compression. I don't give a what you talk about fees. I don't care how you're paid as long as you're getting paid. And you're getting paid by delivering massive value. But if you're a B-rated player, if you're a C-rated player, you're spending 30 minutes before the appointment getting ready. You're not giving your clients the honor and respect to get ready ahead of time. And so, yeah, of course, the only thing you're going to ever talk about are other financial advisors who are killing it in this space, and you want to attack their credibility or the way that they're paid because you can't come to terms with the fact that you chose to be mediocre. You chose this. There's a land of an unlimited opportunity out in front of you. There are two paths divulging. Which one do you want, mediocrity or greatness? Because I'll always take greatness. And if you're listening to podcasts like this, if you're attending our nationwide webinars, if you come to our masterclasses or been in our live event, you know that we are like-minded people. If you've gotten this far, you know something inside of you wants more. Something inside of you wants to achieve something that you don't know how to articulate because you just lack the vocabulary to be able to really figure it out, which means you got to surround yourself with those type of people that want a solution with you. They want to problem solve. They want to collaborate. They want to help you articulate it and then draw out a roadmap to get there. That is the reason that we started the Backstage Pass, which is just a vault of information. I like to refer to it as gem membership. Our growth manager, Tracy Ottinger, she calls it a library. Everything is in there, but you got to do the self-studying by yourself. Invictus, those are for people that are ready to put their money where their mouth is, and they're going to level up. They don't want to just talk about being great. They want an action plan to go do it. Show me what I need to do X, Y, and Z. And the best part of it is, unlike other programs out there, Matt and Micah are financial advisors. They're not giving you some BS coaching advice. They are financial advisors running multi-million-dollar practices, and they have enterprise offices as well as a solo office. So no matter where you are in the spectrum, they are speaking to you. They will help you and your team achieve unimaginable success. TPR Nation, everything we do here is about action items. So right now, I want you to take down what we need to do this week to achieve greatness. 1, you need to make sure that you're sitting down with your team, you're scheduling their time off. Number 2, you need to look at their individualized lesson plan. What are they doing for professional development? Number 3, strongly recommend, if you haven't already read it and taken the assessment, jump onto the Working Genius. It's fantastic. Take it, have your whole team take it. Make sure you got square pegs and square holes. TPR Nation, this has been an episode of Worlds to Conquer. I'm Jamie Shalansky. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect